Real war on marijuana didn't start until 1972, and President Nixon said, you know, it's all the Jews smoking pot. And I mean, he really said that.
When Nixon got into this with his war on drugs, he had things that he wanted to do. He had an agenda.
A lot of the information that was kept and warehoused in the Library of Congress and also at major universities was actually recalled and destroyed. The Nixon report that came out through his administration was called the Schaefer Report. It was by a Republican governor, and when he studied it and gave an answer, you can pick this report up, pick up any page, open it, and if you actually have experience with cannabis, you'll realize they're telling the truth.
And then when it came back saying that marijuana was essentially harmless, he totally ignored it, said we're going to launch a war on drugs anyways.
Didn't even print as many copies that Congress and the House would have been able to see.
1970, beginning of the war on drugs. 76 New Jersey troopers became detectives. I was one of them. They designated 1/3 of us as undercover. I happen to fall in that 1/3. That's where I spent the next 14 years of my life. What we were targeted on was the pot smokers. There was a very good reason we were targeted on pot smokers. Most of them were protesting against the Vietnam War. Now, if you could arrest that whole group of people because they were smoking pot, you didn't have to have a Vietnam War protest, which Mr. Nixon thought was a pretty good idea.
So when President Nixon declared the Civil War that we're living in right now, the drug war, in 1972, it was really a war on marijuana.
It really didn't kick in until the 80s when Reagan, took over his presidency of the U.S.
Ronald Reagan, he said, these young people, they get together, they read books, they smoke marijuana, and they talk. Like these three elements were a recipe for disaster.
How do I feel about legalizing marijuana? Am I for it or against it? I am totally against legalizing marijuana.
And make no mistake, in the U.S. government, the focus of their war on drugs is cannabis. The focus of their rhetoric is cannabis.
It's certainly used as a poster child for all drugs. When you see an ad for drugs, it's always the marijuana leaf that goes up.
It's almost like a religious jihad, more powerful than going for the gusto.
Causes people to think. When people think, they question. They question things like, say, the war in Vietnam, or race separation of blacks and whites like they did in the 30s in the jazz clubs, or women's rights, or the Gulf War, or oil wars.
It's real simple. You put your loafers on, you put your black socks on, you get in your car, you have your briefcase, you say hi to your neighbors, he mows his lawn just like you do, and things keep moving along in the same direction they always have been. That's why marijuana laws exist.
There are, in my opinion, people in government at all levels of government who know that it's not a winnable war, and yet they continue to pursue it.
Acceptance of drug use is simply not an option for this administration.
Often we go to debates and it's a police officer debating us. Okay, the police are supposed to enforce the laws. They should not be arguing for or against laws. That's not their job.
Well, what is their job? Is it to enforce laws that exist on the books, or to determine the policy of the laws that are made?
The way to justify the policy is to create a lot of fear and then spend a lot of money combating that. Quite frankly, if you took the using population of all the other illegal drugs combined and you eliminated cannabis from that equation, there wouldn't be a big enough drug problem in either this country or the United States to justify the massive expenditures that go towards fighting the war.
The amazing thing is the small amount of enforcement that is necessary.
$400 million is spent annually in Canada arresting and prosecuting marijuana crimes. The total budget in Canada for all drugs is $500 million. That means 4/5 of the drug budget goes towards arresting and prosecuting marijuana users, leaving 1/5 for crack, heroin, coke, crystal meth, the date rape drug, whatever.
The drug enforcement industry is big business. It's self-perpetuating. It relies on taxpayer dollars.
And so it's an endless battle that the DEA doesn't win, they participate in.
It's like doing a big budget movie, you get $30 million to do a movie, and then the movie comes out and it doesn't make any money. But someone made $30 million. Every once in a while they'll show a guy, posing beside a big bunch of marijuana, you know, this is the DEA money at work.
It'd be like asking loggers about saving trees, you know what I mean? This is where their mainstay of their cash flow comes from.
The campaign will continue until every available known plot of marijuana has been eradicated.
We've got to live with it, doing the best job we can.
Even if it's a bad job?
We're all carrying a pretty impossible load, Miss Gibson.
There are many, many police officers, however, who believe that it ought to be legalized, regulated, and controlled. They see the hypocrisy between our existing laws relating to alcohol and marijuana in their day-to-day life, shift after shift after shift, and they get it. But they don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to lose that promotion to sergeant or the assignment to detectives. They want to be a chief someday, and they don't want to piss off the people in power.
Judges, lawyers, prosecutors, defense lawyers, prison guards, there's all of those people in the criminal justice industry. Are their interests being protected? Well, in a sense, yes, they are. Defense bar, similarly, we make money. The more things they prohibit, the more money we make.
Sorry I'm late, Kent. I was delayed in court.
You still have large numbers of people being busted for simple possession. If you look at the stats, in terms of drug offenses, the largest group are still simple possession of marijuana.
Every time you blow a marijuana cigarette, you take a chance on blowing your future.
Oh, come on, Pop. All my friends smoke pot. They're not criminals.
Only because they haven't been caught yet.
If you do drugs, you will be caught. And when you're caught, you will be punished.
750,000 Americans every year are charged with pot possession. That's nearly 1 million people, and whether you go to jail or not, your life is in serious trouble.
And that number of annual arrests for marijuana now rivals the number of arrests for murder, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault combined.
You will never get over a conviction. A conviction will track you every day for the rest of your life. For instance, do you remember that guy that used to smoke but didn't inhale? Former President Bill Clinton.
This is not a big issue with me. I never even had a drink of whiskey till I was 22.
Now, if Mr. Clinton handed me that marijuana cigarette when he was standing in a circle with us, it wouldn't matter whether he inhaled or not. He would have become a dope dealer, wouldn't he? Just like all those other people that went to jail. Never to be an attorney, much less the President of the United States.
But the marijuana laws protect us. They make our lives safer. They send us the correct moral message.
That's how 19 out of 21 nations have gone down the drain before us. Internal decay. The breakdown of moral, ethical, and religious principles.
If you've been caught, a young person in the U.S., with so much as one marijuana cigarette, you can't get a loan or grant from the government to go to college. If you've been convicted of murdering somebody or raping someone, no problem. You go right down, they'll give you the loan. I guess the message is it's okay to rape and murder and pillage, just don't smoke a joint afterwards.